Hey everyone, it's time again to recap the latest news from the solar industry compiled by the American Solar Energy Society. I'm Jay Warmke with SolarPVTraining.com, and this is what's happening in the wonderful world of solar for the week of March 2nd. The U.S. residential solar industry struggled last year, seeing declines in installations by about 26% over 2023. Now, much of this decline was due to changes in the net metering policy in California, which reduced compensation for those exporting power to the grid by about 75%. Now, as a result, residential installations in California dropped by over 40%. In 2023, California accounted for 25% of all residential solar installed nationwide. Other factors leading to the nationwide decline were higher interest rates, as well as increased tariffs, which added to the cost of installing a system. But residential solar only makes up about 22% of the overall solar market. Utility scale solar accounts for 72% of all solar installations, and that segment of the industry saw a dramatic 44% growth rate last year over 2023. As a result, solar made up 64% of new generating capacity added last year, and when you add storage to the mix, solar plus storage accounted for 84% of all new generating sources added to the grid in 2024. Fossil fuels, on the other hand, specifically natural gas, accounted for only about 4% of those additions to the grid. The Energy Information Administration, or EIA, anticipates that 63 gigawatts of new capacity will be added to the grid this year, and 81% of that will be from solar plus storage. This represents a 30% increase over the amount that was added in 2024. Households and businesses will expect to pay more for electricity over the next decade if Congress repeals the tax provisions for clean energy in the Inflation Reduction Act. This, according to a new study published by the Clean Energy Buyers Association. By 2029, full repeal of the investment and production tax credits will increase electricity prices by about 7.3% for residential customers and 10.6% for commercial and industrial, or basically 9.2% across all sectors. Now, electricity demand is expected to increase by about 50% over the next decade, coming from the addition of data centers, the onshoring of manufacturing and industrial processes, as well as the electrification of the automobile. Now, full repeal of the IRA tax credits could reduce wind and solar deployments by about 50%. By 2035. And echoing Economics 101, basically the report says that if you have increased demand and a reduction in the anticipated supply, then prices will go up. The U.S. demand for residential off-grid systems is rising faster than on-grid systems. In fact, compounded year on year, off-grid systems are growing between 7 and 10%, while on-grid systems are growing at a rate of about 6%. This according to a study by the Thompson Endowment, as well as the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada. While a large part of this off-grid market is indeed truly off-grid, there is no connection to the grid available. The study found that increasingly utility cost rises are making the disconnection from the grid financially attractive option. In fact, in 5 states identified in the report, these were Hawaii, California, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. They found those as prime candidates for the conversion to off-grid, with some of these locations finding about a 6-year payback for this change. The surge in adding storage to homes is also making the transition to off-grid more attractive. In California, for example, 60% of all homes installed in 2024 did incorporate storage, and the leap from solar plus storage to complete off-grid is actually quite simple. Each year, the Institute for Local Self-Reliance evaluates state policies in the adoption of renewable energy and then produces a community power scorecard. The nonprofit group assesses 18 different categories, from net metering to ease of interconnection to third-party ownership, and then issues that letter grade. In 2024, of the 50 states and Washington, D.C., only one state received an above average grade. 13 got a C average, 14 received Ds, and 23 states received a failing grade of an F. Scoring highest for policy friendly to the adoption of solar were Illinois, Oregon, Colorado, New York, and California. Those states least friendly to the adoption of renewable energy were Alabama, South Dakota, Tennessee, Wyoming, and Nebraska. And that's the news from the solar industry for this week. We'll see you next week.